Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it. K-Dog, what's going on, buddy?
K-Dog. I haven't been called that
Since a couple of weeks ago. I don't know.
Have you called me K-Dog?
I don't know, but it just like popped into my head, so I said it.
Were you B-Dog growing up? Were you B-Dog?
No, I don't think so.
You were Big B? You were... what were you?
I was a lot of things to a lot of people. And some were nice things and some were not. So, yeah.
Yeah, when your friends saw you, how'd they greet you?
Open arms, happy to see me.
What did they call you?
By my name, Brian.
Okay.
I did have a nickname as playing baseball as a kid. Played catcher. Called me Sarge.
Yeah. Sarge?
Yeah.
Why Sarge?
Fuck, I don't know.
Okay. All right, Sarge.
Yeah.
Very good.
How about you? Other than K-Dog.
K-Hark.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually my...
K-Hark.
That's my rap
or
name.
Cash. Cash is...
Yeah, Cash.
Yeah.
That came later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's your mature rapper title.
Right, I was K-Hark. Right. K-Hark's pretty good.
It's just us tonight, man.
I know.
No guests tonight.
I know.
It's kind of cool.
It is.
I certainly enjoy having guests and exploring different information and perspectives and so on. But at the same time, it's cool when it's just us sometimes.
It's very good. I like it.
That's how it started. That's how it's going to stay for the most part.
We'll have that forever.
Yeah.
So, when you were a kid, what did you what did you want to be when you were a kid?
Oh, it's interesting that you asked that question because I don't I think I had the typical police, fire kind of mindset that a lot of kids, at least when I grew up, did. And,
right.
The whole military thing and being a Marine didn't come on until later.
Okay.
Because it's in this part of the country, kids grow up and everybody knows Marines.
Right.
You go to an area where I grew up, and I think I knew like 2 or 3, and that wasn't until later, when I grew up and was about to graduate from high school. We weren't overrun with Marines. No base near us, and so it was certainly we knew of them, but never had plans necessarily to do that until girl I was dating when I was in high school. Her brother went to boot camp, and when he came back, we started talking about his experience and so on, and
made an impression.
It's like, all right, I know what I'm doing now.
But I mean, you played football, right?
Yeah.
And you were you were an athlete.
Yeah.
Were you a good student?
So for me, school was more of a social event. I did enough to get by and get passing grades.
Yep.
Did I fully apply myself and get the grades that I was capable of getting? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Me either. I was not one of those either.
Yeah.
Someday I'll tell you.
I waited for later to do that. It's different when you're paying for it. You tend to pay more attention and get more out of it when you're writing that check.
You pay a lot more attention. Yes, you do. So you didn't, want to like be a hand model or anything?
Oh shit! No, I did not have a stint where I wanted to be a hand model. I don't know. I can't really think of anything in particular. My mom and dad are going to listen to this, so they'll probably text me and remind me. Remember when you said you wanted to?
Right.
But for me, it was like the police or firefighter thing.
Okay.
And I was fortunate enough to be able to do both of those. So check those boxes.
So that's interesting because, well, it's kind of what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah.
You identified as something as a kid. I did too. And you think about the impacts that has on your life before it becomes really meaningful, except in some cases. In some cases, I actually think it's almost a gift when a child knows at a very early age what he or she wants to do with their lives.
Yeah.
Because then they can start making decisions that move them in that direction. But what we're talking about tonight, folks, is the concept of who do you identify as, and it's you chuckling at the hand model thing?
No, yeah,
What?
the hand model thing,
Right.
that is funny.
Right.
But yeah, I had this habitual pose that they didn't like. So no, I never.
Yes.
No, the hand model thing never worked out. But no, I'm laughing because you shared this title with me. Who
Right.
do you identify
Right.
as? Google that term, right? Google that term in 2022, and everything that pops up is about gender equality and
Okay.
transgender stuff and so on. And so you didn't come right out and ask me that question. Who do you identify as? Because I was going to say an American white male by birth.
Okay. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great too. And I figured at some point that would come up in this conversation, something like
Yeah.
that. And I knew that you identified that anyway. But it is interesting because as I was taking on this topic, I was thinking about, well, what did I identify as a kid? And at that point, there wasn't any talk about transgender or any of those options that are available today. The option was, do you want to be a professional athlete? Do you want to be a firefighter?
Those
Do you
weren't
wanna
conversations we had.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
Do you want to be whatever? And I couldn't stand school, so I never studied. This is elementary school and junior high. I think
Right.
started to change a little bit in high school, but I was wanting to play professional sports. And every moment I had, I was out doing football, basketball, baseball, all of it.
Right.
Every season I was participating in something. And so that is what I identified at that time. And it very much impacted the decisions I made in my childhood and the things that I did. And that's really the point that we're going to get to. And the question, and now as adults, as we have the opportunity to stop and consider, people don't consider this question a lot. They don't. Who do you identify as? I don't think they purposely, specifically take this on.
Yeah, so I'm glad you cleared that up when you say, because I was going to challenge your first statement, because I
Okay.
think they do, just not purposeful. Yeah, easy for you to say, right? Purpose. I don't know why that word's
Purposefully,
kicking
yeah.
my ass.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I think everybody does it. It's just they don't do so. I like intention better. That's easier for me to
Yes.
say for some reason.
Yes.
They don't do so with intention.
Yeah.
And direction and actually planning out where they're going with it and so on.
Right.
I do think that people, they're doing it out of the things that they're thinking and the things that they're doing. They're manifesting what that is. Just might not be in control of it.
So here's the thing that's so powerful about this topic. Again, to just say it again, the topic tonight is, who do you identify as? And I was reading, I've mentioned the last couple of weeks, I finished it now, but I was reading the book Atomic Habits. And in that book was a section about this whole idea of installing habits that you can continue to repeat time after time after time, because if it never becomes a habit, you're not going to do it, right? You'll try it for a while, and then eventually you're going to lose interest and it's going to fade away.
Right.
And part of the reason you do that is because you don't identify as that habit that you're trying to instill in your life. And I thought, wow, that it really is powerful. And so people don't really realize very often who they're identifying as, or they haven't taken the time to stop and think about it. But their behavior, your behavior, all of our behaviors are very much dictated by who we choose to identify as. You
Yeah.
choose to identify as a member of a very cool motorcycle club. That impacts your behavior every single day. That impacts your decisions. That impacts the friends that you have and the people you choose to hang out with.
Yeah.
That impacts where you spend your time.
All in a good way.
All in a good way. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's
Absolutely.
very kind. I appreciate you saying that. You know, it's interesting because thinking about this too, I think that I'm going to take this in a whole different direction for a second, but I think it's important to understand who it is that you identify as, because when it's founded in things that are a part of your core life, not dependent upon your career, I think that's a more solid foundation. I think that all too often people identify with who they are as a professional, right? With that position that they have.
Right.
And when that goes away, they struggle with that identity.
Yep.
It's why people have such difficulty after retiring from the military in particular, because it's for the most part, it's usually at a fairly young age in life. You know, I mean, an 18-year-old doesn't necessarily think so, but at the, you know, when you're retiring at, you know, somewhere between 40 and 50 years old, that's pretty young. You know, when folks haven't had the I don't want to say the structure, but the intent in their life to really create a foundation where they identify with other things and not just the workplace, when that goes away, man, it can be a challenge. I've seen it happen to people, and it's not cool to watch.
You're right. It's not cool to watch. And they're still identifying as something.
Right. But now it's gone.
But it's gone, and that's why you need to be purposeful about it. So this is what I would ask people to do. Take a minute and just think. Think about the things that you identify as that you never even really consider. And here's one. We've talked about this before, and I've teased you about it a little bit. People will say, I'm not good with names. Guess what? If you say that, you're identifying as a person who's not good with names, and you are going to continue to behave as a person who's not good with names. I'm a procrastinator. I don't like to work out. I don't, you go on and on with anything that you want to say.
Right.
And you are identifying as that type of person.
Yep.
And because of that, you're putting that vibe out there in the world, and you are manifesting that behavior in the things that you do.
Yep. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Self-fulfilling prophecy. And if you decided you wanted to be good with names, guess what you would do? You would really start paying attention to people's names when you met them. Then you start playing games in your head. Okay, her name is Mary, and you'll come up with some rhyme. Mary.
She had a little lamb.
There you go. She had a little lamb, and she had a little dog. So you say the dog is a lamb, and now you remember her name is Mary because she's got the little dog. See, there's little tools and tricks like that that you can do that you identify as. But the way that you identify defines you, and it also limits you. And I don't say limit in a bad way. It could be a bad way when it comes back to the name thing, but it also can limit you in a very positive way.
Agreed.
I think it was in the book, but I might have heard it somewhere else, where he was sharing a story about a guy who smoked, and the guy wanted to stop smoking. Have I told this story already?
No, but okay. I've read that much in the book.
You've read that much, yeah. And so there was a guy that smoked. He wanted to stop smoking, and so somebody at the camp comes along later after this guy's done smoking and says, "You want a cigarette?" One person says, "No, I don't want a cigarette. I've stopped smoking." Okay, that means one thing. That's a good answer. But another guy says, "No, I'm a non-smoker." There's a difference there.
Big time.
Big time. I quit smoking means maybe I'll take it up again sometime.
Right.
But if you say I'm a non-smoker, then that's it. Oh, I don't smoke. Game over. You are identifying as a non-smoker. You are identifying as a healthy adult. You are identifying as a hardworking professional. You are identifying as a fill in the blank, and that's going to define who you are. So you can't just be random about it or let it exist.
No, I agree. And I would challenge folks to take a look at your values. So write your values down, what you truly care about. And then, without looking at those values, write down who you identify as. and then compare the two and see if they're in alignment with one another. Because I think that if they're not, that can create some issues for you, some internal strife and turmoil in your life. So, I think it's important to understand who you identify as and make sure that they're in alignment with your values.
Alignment with your no doubt about it. And if you are trying to change some behavior in your life, and this applies to every single one of us, and you're not able to, or you can't sustain it over time, again, it's probably because what you're trying to do is inconsistent with who you identify as. And so you run out of steam and you just give up on it. Think about those people who say, this just never works out for me. It's the same kind of thing. They'll get some right. I start, but I can't finish.
Right.
That's another thing. You're identifying as a non-finisher. Guess what? You're not going to finish.
Yeah, I like the one. You're at an event or something. And people will say, they're having raffles, and they'll say something like, "I never win."
Right.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Do you want to win? Would you like to change that? Then maybe you should stop saying that. Stop those, declarative statements.
Yeah.
That's a word, right? Declarative.
It's a great word. I love that word.
Yeah.
I actually do. I use it a lot.
Because if it's not a word, I just made that up.
No, it's a great word. Your wisdomosity is coming through.
Oh, that, yeah. So we need to put that in the dictionary. I don't know if that's in there or not, but we need to coin that phrase.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, so let's take a turn on this and make it back toward the positive side of it.
All right.
I don't know if when you were kind of doing a little bit of your research, but it is very true that when you go back and you look at people throughout life, throughout recorded history, who you consider to be very, very, great or successful or very accomplished in a field, whatever it is, very often you will find out that they are people who identified as great before they ever became great in that particular chosen field of expertise.
Right.
And you can, the one I read a piece about Muhammad Ali.
Right.
Muhammad Ali was talking about being the greatest boxer in the world long before he was, the greatest boxer of his time. He was, and he just said, "That's who I am. That's who I identify as, and every bit of my behavior is going to move me toward that, and that's gonna affect how hard I work out.
Yeah.
It's gonna affect what I eat. It's gonna affect who I choose to fight. It's gonna affect whether I'm getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 in the morning to go do. All of that stuff matters."
Yeah. It's a whole, there's lots of phrases that talk about that. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Act as if.
Mm-hmm.
You carry on. You put that vision out there. What it is that you want to accomplish, how you want to, how you see yourself in, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever the time frame may be, and conduct yourself in that manner to fulfill that end.
Right. There you go. Another great example that I've talked about before that I want to share because it's fascinating to me, and so if it's fascinating to me, it must be fascinating to everybody else. And
No
that
doubt.
is,
I'm fascinated now.
Are you?
Yeah.
I can see you kind of went up on the edge of your chair.
Yeah. I'm serious. I
Okay.
am fascinated to hear what you're going to say.
It's the whole
I'm being
story.
a bit of a smart ass,
Right. Right. Okay.
You knew
So
that because my lips were moving.
I love the story of especially the early part of Tiger Woods' life.
Yeah.
And his father instilled in him from 2 years old, you are going to be the greatest golfer in the world. And that was an environment that he was in, but he took it on. He owned it himself.
Right.
And we've talked about that, everybody thinks he's a genetic freak because he's some sort of incredible athlete and gifted with the physical traits that nobody has and all that stuff. All that is crap. The reason he was such a good golfer was because he identified as that, and he worked at it, and he worked at it, and he worked at it. But here's the story I want to get to because it tells the story and how people can be mismatched when they don't understand. He was being interviewed. This is when he was at his peak, on the way up, not completely, but he was being interviewed by Bob Costas after one of his wins.
Right.
And Are you remembering this story? Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. So Bob Costas is sitting, across the table and saying, I mean, it's really impressive what you've done so far at your young age. I think he was 21 or something at the time, 22, young, won a couple major tournaments already. And he said, you could be the greatest African-American golfer that's ever lived. Yeah. And Tiger Woods looked at him really quizzically, like, what? And he goes, I want to be the greatest golfer.
Yeah, what the hell does race have to do with it?
Yeah, exactly. And it was like he was identifying, he was on a completely different plane than Bob Costas. And Bob Costas was putting all these conditions on it.
Right.
And Tiger was identifying as something much greater than that, and he called him out on it.
Yeah, good for him. I don't recall seeing that interview, but good for him for calling him out.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was wonderful. That was a great one. But another one which I know you'll appreciate, and I think that you probably were going to say it and you just haven't had a chance to because I keep talking.
Oh no, here we go.
Is the greatness of Tom Brady. I mean, there's a guy who decided early on that he was going to be the best quarterback out there, and he was going to work his ass off to make it happen. And you appreciate that. I know you do.
I actually do.
I know.
And I've said that.
Yes, you have. Yes, you
can't argue with his results, no doubt.
Right.
Yeah, I think mindset and intention in anything are hugely valuable. And when you decide and start acting in that way, things will align for you. And now, I mean, is that possible for everything? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's possible for most things, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's probably some limitations.
For me, it just brings this whole conversation all the way back to the very beginning, and that is, you ask yourself the question, who do I identify as? And if you haven't ever done that, if you haven't ever gone through that exercise before, and it became new and real to me, and with the wording in that book, that it hit me afresh and anew in a way that I went back and looked at, how do I identify? You got to take the time to do it. Take the time to think about who you are identifying as, the word you use many times, intentionally.
Yeah.
And then think about it, dwell on it, pray about it, meditate on it, reinforce it just over and over and over again in your head. Remind yourself who it is that you're identifying as, and watch what happens in your life.
Yeah, and I'd take it a step further too, as far as not just who is it that you identify as. Once you've locked onto that, then I'd ask that you make a list of the characteristics in your mind of someone that identifies that way, right? And do the self-evaluation to see if those preconceived characteristics that you have in your mind about somebody that identifies as XYZ, are you exhibiting those? Do you possess those? And if not, are they that important? And if they are, then that's a little learning curve you got to navigate to make sure that it's all part of that total fulfillment, right? So if you see it in a certain way and you don't have all the pieces of that puzzle, there's going to be some emptiness there, and you got to make sure you take care of that.
Very well said. And it's never going to be easy, and it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be foolproof. But if you keep falling back onto, well, identify this person as this person, even when you make mistakes, you can say, this happened, this behavior occurred, but it's not who I am. It doesn't define me, because that's not what I identify as. That's really important. And it allows you to forgive yourself if you have made a mistake.
Right. Well, yeah, okay. Here's maybe a different view on that, right? So,
okay.
Maybe it's time to bring the court of you into session.
Okay.
And find out, right? If that's who you identify as, let's present the evidence to decide whether or not that's actually so.
Okay.
Because you can think it, and it might not be.
Okay.
So, I think that comes back to the values thing again and the characteristics. Sometimes though, because I think, I've met people that have walked around identifying as a certain way and couldn't have been further from the truth.
Yeah. That is interesting. What if, okay, and you might have thought of some specific examples, and I won't ask you to share them because they might not be flattering to whoever you're thinking about, but or on those occasions where that has happened,
right?
And the person is not identifying as the behavior that they are, does their identification as whatever ultimately win the day in the long haul, or?
I think it depends.
Okay.
It depends on whether or not, it depends on what it is, right? So if it's not productive behavior that's not producing positive results in their life, then ultimately, no, I don't think it's going to win out in the end. And I also think that, as folks that associate with people that may fall into that category, there's somewhat of a responsibility, especially if it's somebody that you know and have a relationship with. There's a responsibility to be honest with that person and provide feedback to them. So if they are carrying themselves in a way or project themselves in a certain way, and that's not who they or what they identify as, call them out on it, because they might be doing so with intention, and it could be just negligence on their part. Or the worst case scenario being it's with intention, that they're not acting consistently with their values and so on.
You're probably doing them a favor, right, by giving them honest feedback. That's a good point.
I think honest feedback's important, and I think if you don't have people in your life, in your inner circle, that are willing to call you on your bullshit, then you need to get some new friends.
Okay.
Because it's important to have people that love you and care about you enough that they will tell you that. And sometimes it happens, early on. Sometimes it happens timely, and sometimes it doesn't. And then bad shit can happen as a result of that.
Right. Yeah. That's you made me think of another specific example of a kid that I knew. This is 35 years ago, who wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And that was it. That's what he identified as, and he thought about it, and he talked about it. And sometimes he would do it. Just we'd be sitting at the table, and he would start pretending to be a sportscaster.
Right.
And he was horrible. I mean, it was awful. It was the worst thing ever. I actually don't know. I should Google him and find out what he's doing to see if he is a sportscaster, and if that. But people gave him that honest feedback that you're gonna have to get. I mean, maybe.
Right. It's certainly possible.
Right.
Not at your current performance level.
Right.
That's good encouragement, though. That's not bullshitting people.
No.
Setting them up for failure. Oh my God, you're good at this stuff. Go out there and apply for a job somewhere.
Right. Right.
You certainly don't want to do that. And I guess, I think where I was going with it were, things that had to do more so with like integrity and, honesty and so on, where, people were saying they're a certain way, but they're really not. They're showing up in a different way. And,
Yeah. Anyway, that was it. I just, I thought it was, and it is such a powerful concept to, with intention, identify as something that you really want to become, or that will define who you are. Once you do that, magic will happen in your life, because you will start making decisions differently. You will start spending your time differently. It is powerful, but you got to take action on it. You can't just think about it, as we've talked about many times on the podcast.
Yeah, here's and I'm sure you've heard this, and probably those listening may have as well. Good exercise, to kind of roll forward in your life and write your own eulogy. Right? Just write it out. What are people going to say about you when you're gone? Because again, that's another one of those self-evaluation things. You're writing that. What do you want people to say about you, and what are they going to say about you? Because if this is what you want them to say and you're identifying as this, is that going to get you there? Because if it's not, then you're going to have to make some changes in either accepting being, or identifying as something else, or make the changes necessary so that at the end they are saying these things about you.
Right. Well, there you go. And maybe, I thought about this a little bit at the end of yours, on your headstone. It'll say all these wonderful things about you, but then it'll be ... It should have been a hand model.
Oh, that's fucked up. Because somebody's going to latch on to that shit, right?
Oh my goodness. I hope so.
I'm going to come back and haunt your ass if that happens.
Somebody out there, you gotta latch on.
Just remember when something's creeping in the night, some weird shit's going on, and you're all freaked out about it, that'll be me coming back to haunt your ass.
All right. There you go. That's what I got. That's what I got for you. I thought, another thing. This is true. I'm now off of the,
All right.
I wanted to ask our listening audience, anybody's there who feels like you've asked this before, but it just as I was thinking about this, if you guys have topics out there that you want us to address, tell us what they are. We'd love to take on some things, and I know we've done that before. You've had several suggestions, and I have too, and almost every time I think I've taken them. Once or twice I've rejected them, but
I'm glad you said that, because there's actually one floating out there that someone suggested to me here recently. So
okay,
yeah,
let us know what it is you think we ought to be talking about, or something that you would like us to take on, and tell you what our thoughts are on it. We'd love to. So I like it. I like our audience.
Yeah, and we have to throw the disclaimer out there that just because you suggest it doesn't mean we're going to talk about it.
Good point.
Right, because you might come forward with some crazy shit that we don't want to have a conversation about.
That's right. I've said my piece.
All right. Yeah.
Good?
Yeah, interesting discussion.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we should all sit down and think about.
Bet.
Evaluate, when you're spending that alone time in your cave or wherever that is.
Yeah.
Think about it.
You bet.
Who do you identify as?
Who you on? Yeah, I reviewed all that just this morning as I was preparing for the podcast.
Nice.
Once again, it's great.
All right.
I think we're good.
We're good?
We're good.
You sure?
I'm positive.
All right, so I'm going to reach over and hit this button.
Yeah. Could have done something with that, but I didn't.
Yeah. All right. No matter who you are, where you are, and what you're doing, make sure between this podcast and the next, you take time to enjoy the ride.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.